So today we're talking about one of the fundamental mathematical concept, fraction. So when we think about fraction, we kind of got to break it down a little bit and think about what it means to have a fraction. Something like 1 over 2. We can treat it as many other things, such as a division, or it can be written as a ratio, as a decimal, which is 0.5. And obviously there's many other ways to express this exact same value, right? 2 over 4, 3 over 6. So all of these things above, right, have the exact same value. So a fraction, by definition, right, it's something over something. So these are our fractions. And even though they're the same values, there's a slightly different process, right? As this is a calculation process, this is a decimal, and this is a ratio. So it kind of shows, this kind of reflects one of the property of fractions, right? It's very manipulable. There's many different ways you can sort of mess with it. Unlike some of the other numbers, right? Like an integer, like a 2. There's only so many ways you can write a 2. Or something like a square root 3, right? You're really stuck in this one form. Now let's explore a little bit about fraction. What are some of the conventions and what are some of the ways that we can play with it? I'm gonna pick 3 over 5, 0.6 if you put it in your calculator. There's many ways we can change it while still maintaining the same value, right? So if I write something like 6 over 10, this is still 0.6. If I write 30 over 50, again, right, I can go the other way, right? I can write 1.5 over 2.5. Even smaller, I can go 0.75 over 1.25. Right, so all of these will equal to 0.6. Okay, so this kind of reflects two things. So this is one of the really crucial property, which is that you can multiply or divide anything to the top or bottom, the denominator and the denominator, and the value of the fraction doesn't change. It remains the same. But another issue arises is that there's too many ways of expressing over 3 over 5, right? As you can see here, I've already listed 4 options, and there's infinite amount of options. So when it comes to writing down fraction, there's a bit of a convention, right, when we're expressing this result. So first thing first is we don't want any decimals in our numerator or denominator, right? So if I have something like 1.5 over 2, right, I want to get rid of that point, right, and then turn it into something like 3 over 4, if that makes sense. If I have a fraction and the numerator and the denominator has a common factor, so a factor is an integer that can be used to divide the number by and still have a integer outcome. So for instance, 40 divided by 40 equals to 1, and 1 is an integer, therefore 40 is a factor, right? And in the same sense, 1 is also a factor of 40, right? Because 40 divided by 1 equals to 40, and 40 is an integer. Another example would be 10. So because 40 divided by 10 is 4, and then 4 is an integer, therefore 10 is a factor. But 12 wouldn't be an integer, right? Because 40 divided by 12 equals 3.333, so that is not an integer. So 12 is not a factor. Usually the factors come in pair, because if you imagine 40 divided by 10 is 4, that means both 10 and 4 can be divided into 40. 4 and 10, another one is 5 and 8. And for 50, I have 1, 50, 2, 25, and then 5, 10. Right, so if we have a common factor, that means the top and bottom number can both be divided by this factor. Factor means it can be divided by, common factor means both can be divided by. So you have to divide the common factor if there is one. And this is what we see as the simplest form when the common factor is only 1. So by definition, there's still a common factor, which is 1. But if there's anything but 1, you got to divide by. Right, so this is some of the fundamental things of fraction.